Good evening, Inspill Glimmers, and welcome to this special episode. Yesterday, April 8th, we had a very, very big announcement coming from Ravensburger. Hiram Flaversham and Fortishpere were banned.
First ban in the game.
First ban in the game, there was a heavy altar for Bucky back in the days. Rip. But first actual bans, big implications, completely destroying the blue archetypes to some degree. So we thought we'd catch on with one of the most impacted people in the field by those bans by reaching out to S4iler, who's joining us tonight.
Hey, hello everyone. Happy to be here with fellow lovely Lorcana players.
Yeah, I hear it's been a rough 24 hours on your end, trying to adapt to the news and trying to come up with new solutions.
Yeah, I feel a lot of weight on my shoulders, and it was no questions the best card in all the blue decks. Maybe exception being the Kiwi blue steel deck or maybe some fringe blue green decks, but in general, Hiram was the centerpiece of Sapphire. It was its identity. It just got basically sent to the grave. It's been rough 24 hours, and I'm just here trying to find solutions and then going back to frustrations and trying to accept. So all the stages of grief are coming back and forth, right? And I know for some people it's just a game, but for us people that invest so much time and energy into it, it's more than a game. So yeah, feels rough.
Because you were telling us about it when we were kind of prepping for the video. Like, it's not just, playing games and whatnot and like preparing for worlds and other big tournaments. For you, it's like a real, business.
There's a real impact for...
So for anybody who don't know, I run a MetaFi that is specialized about building the best red-blue decks every format. And I've been doing so since September. But even before that, I was coaching since last June for almost a year. Basically, I've built this identity of playing and being the pioneer of this archetype that was very fringe and not very playable for the first few sets, right? And I feel like I participated into making it what it was, and maybe pushing it a little bit too far because it was granted too good. And it's not that it wasn't, right? I feel like it's pretty obvious that in the last month or so, the results showed itself, right? With the new tools, with Coil, with the new Happy Tamatoa, with the Scrooge, right, in blue steel, those and Bells, those tools were just so good that it brought these decks to new heights. And even though Hiram before was something that was very, very powerful, those new cards put new meanings to that Sapphire identity, and so much that it was oppressive to the other decks. And I get it. It's just that for a lot of the Sapphire players, they've been struggling and they've been building up these skills to try to keep up with the card draw and the tempo that the other decks have, right? And Hiram was always a very tempo negative way to draw cards because it didn't impact the board, right? We didn't have very good songs to sing with him to get back that tempo. So there was all these theories and these deck building that were heavily, heavily, heavily worked on to make it work. And we kind of got too many tools to make it work in this new set.
Well, we were talking
and suddenly it was too good for some people that played these decks for so long and had a hard time, and they were only really rewarded by their skills and not because the deck was overpowered. And now to have it being banned after a month of it being successful, I mean, it's rough, right? It's investment in time and it's investment in money for a lot of people. And for me, as we were saying, it's a whole community, right? Of hundreds of people that are expecting me, and that I have...
now looking at you being like, okay, we spent money on the cards, we followed your advice. What now? Where do we go to? What's the next blue-red?
Show us the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I would like myself to be that person and say, no, we're going to be fine, but I don't want to be delusional. The centerpiece of the deck was Hiram, right? It was all about him.
Yeah, you kind of have to figure out where to go from there. Like I know asked you the question, and you told me like you have no good answer. Like, what do you do? Do you redefine like the kind of the brand? Do you just try and find solution to work around it? Because there are no like super good solutions at replacing Hiram. It was a heck of a card. Like I remember talking with Ryan in Atlanta when I was at the DLC, and he said like the card is busted. The card is kind of mistemplated just for the 6 willpower, you know.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah, I would have wished that they would honestly just made him one fight and that's it.
yeah, because that's
And I would also wish that they didn't push blue as much this set, right? Like I think
yeah.
because
right.
because even like I remember talking with you when we were doing our set review, like we were excited about blue. We were like, blue is definitely the best color in this set and whatnot. But I don't think either us, you, Patrick saw that it was game breaking at this point, right?
I was concerned already.
Okay.
Yeah, I was concerned already. And I knew that it could lead to that because obviously people had concerns about Hiram for quite some time already. And when I saw all these good blue cards, I was like, this is going to be real good.
Yeah, because
And just before we dive a little deeper on Hiram, I just want to touch up on the Fortishpere. The description that they gave, the explanation that Steve Miller gave us yesterday was that they went for Fortishpere instead of Popsicle to leave the item package relevant in blue-red.
In blue specifically.
Yeah, in blue specifically, but that they, like, with blue-red having bell and everything, like the shift bell, that they wanted to, like, keep that blue identity intact and keep
which
the
I agree,
focus
by the
of
way.
blue.
I think banning Popsicle would have been the absolute death of blue.
you would have banned the color, right? Like you were incapacitating all of the new cards from the new set that are still, you know, good. They took a hit with the leaving of Hiram, but like they're still powerful cards. So
yeah, with Popsicle. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, with Popsicle. So, but do you agree on like limiting the blue steel item package by removing the Fortishpere? Like, I think we can all agree that it's a better call to remove Fortishpere than Popsicle.
Yeah.
But what do you think about just removing Fortishpere as a decision?
I think that's a bit much. Like 8 Popsicle was very obnoxious, right? Like I think that's too much. It gives way too much consistency.
It made the turn 1 bell fairly easy.
Yeah. And so that's one issue. My issue is that now blue steel as an archetype is just not it. Like but I think that's the same for red blue. Like my issue is not the ban of Fortishpere, it's really the ban of Hiram that is the centerpiece, right? And obviously, once you ban Hiram, you ban Fortishpere. At that point, maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't, but like, yeah, it feels even worse for sure.
Well, it kind of feels like targeted. It's like we're hitting that archetype in particular, you know. Like because I also feel that maybe just banning the Fortishpere was kind of just a way of saying, okay, so now Bell is gonna be harder to do, or you're gonna have to work harder to just get it on turn 1. In blue red, you'll have maybe to play Vitalisphere or stuff like that, you know, just like,
which is terrible, by the way. Like going -1 on yourself to play a 3/3 on 1 is generally not acceptable unless you're playing Hiram to refill.
Exactly.
Yeah, and when we think about the fact that Belle is way more potent in blue steel than she is in blue red because of Led the Storm and Strength of a Raging Fire.
Yeah, that's
there's no
the
good
main issue.
3-cost song in red that she can sing to just control the board. So I think that's where she's the biggest offender and where
I agree.
Having that whole consistency was the biggest problem.
Yeah, and like these items are so free to play in your deck because they have some kind of utility, they replace themselves. And blue has terrible 1-drops, right? Like there's absolutely nothing to play as 1-drop. Like they're all bad. That's the other issue. They're all bad to steal. You cannot play 1-drops, and like to be honest, the 2-drops are as bad outside of Sil and Tipo, because at least Tipo you got your value already if it's being banished, right? But like Chichas and Oswalds in a meta where Steel can sing Storm Rage on 2 is just not it, right? Like it's not good. The only time where Oswalds and Chicha ended up being relevant is when red was so prevalent, right? And like Brawl on to those is like down trading, right, in terms of ink value. So it was not like an issue. But when you have a singer that sings Storm freely onto those characters, they feel so bad, right? And so
time to bring back Grammatala, no choice.
That's the issue right now with these two decks, is that their only good 1-drops were items, and so you needed to build towards making uses out of them, and the biggest use that you have now is gone.
I mean, I think Steel still has a bit like variety of 1-drops because of the shift targets. Like, it's not fitting the item package as much, but
it's not the same deck. That's the thing.
No, exactly.
You're playing into other archetypes. You want to go like mid range with shifty stuff, and you're also straying away from blue really quickly when you're talking about that. So.
Yeah, you're saying like I'm playing Steel with Alice and Cogsworth, right? Like that's basically and Manor. Like that's
that kind of
that you have 12 blue cards, right? That kind of don't really fit the team of the other blue cards. They're just like good rate or specific more like utility cards or whatever.
And it's one of the questions I wanted to address with you is blue has remained, I will say, like blue-red has remained fairly unchanged since you brought Sisu on Ice. Like it's been upgraded, but the archetype as a whole hasn't changed that much. It was play items, play Hiram, build towards Tamatoa Dime,
and we're not talking about
the
variation with Shark and make the
No.
We're really talking about Sisu on Ice.
Yeah, I mean, so in set 6, the reason why I've added Sharks was because of green purple. They had so much reach and go wide and also all the purple cards recycles themselves, right? So like a be prepared wouldn't be enough, right? Like you would just be prep and they would just go wide again, right? And so I added Shark there and Pirate's Life as a way to just freeze the game, right? So that was still Sisu on Ice, using Shark as like kind of a mid-game approach of, okay, before I get to this big Sisu, before I get to take over the board, I need to give myself some time. And obviously it was very good into the Genie. That was very relevant. And versus Amethyst in general. And that was something that we were lacking before. We just were very soft to Amethyst in general. Now with the Shark, it was much better. But in general, I agree. The archetype is mostly built around the same things.
Yeah. But what I was aiming at is now that this has happened and that you're rethinking everything basically around the deck, do you think this opens up like an avenue for other finishers in the deck? Because the finisher was always Tamatoa, and whenever like a Mufasa was coming or a Big Merlin was coming, it was always, well, we already have Tamatoa, it's not better than Tamatoa, off to the side it goes. But now that the focus might not be as item-centric without Hiram, do you think that there's value to reconsidering some of those top ends?
I mean, all those cards don't draw cards, and Hiram's, not Hiram's, both Tamatoas are drawing cards, right? So that was always the reason, right? They're both
recycling the popsicle again and again.
Recycling the popsicles, and so they're never a -1, even if your opponent has an answer. Even like against something like Ruby Amethyst, we're forgetting it right now because it wasn't doing too great into this blue meta, but you needed they have infinite card advantage, right? That theirs was not taken away, right? Like so they can always come back now that their biggest enemy doesn't have a card advantage engine anymore, right? So they could always like be prep and Tremaine and whatnot, and so you needed this big threat that gets you back the card so that you just don't go -1 every turn until they get total control, right? And the dime not being answered to by either Ruby and Amethyst also was this big liability for them. And obviously everything was built around the fact that Ruby Amethyst was the best deck for like 5 sets in a row?
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking, like we're talking about like decks of old and whatnot. My main problem now is like drawing cards has been so important in Lorcana ever since the beginning of the game.
In all TCGs, to be fair, but yes.
Yeah.
Sure, but like ever more so in Lorcana, you can get away with it in other games that have wider card pools. I'm thinking about Magic. We were talking about Affinity with Nick on our stream the other day. Like you're never refilling in this deck. You're just like vomiting your hand onto the board, and that's about it. And wish to end the game as quickly as possible. But in Lorcana, games go long. It's a grindy game. It's a long, jog. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And like that's the thing. They've kind of thinking about it. They kind of dug blue into kind of a corner. It's really one of the remaining colors that doesn't have great ways to draw cards anymore. Hiram was very, very good, but the thing is, if you consider the second best thing to draw, it's quasi non-existent, right?
I mean, it's
it
the new
becomes card
Tamatoa
filtering.
now.
Yeah.
But you still have to be reliant on items.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things that frustrates me right now is that we had conditional card draw. Obviously, the rate on it was exceptional. Like, I'm not going to deny that, but it was conditional. Every other colors except Ruby, well, have the colors, right? Basically, Steel, Amethyst, and Emerald, they don't have conditional card draw, right? They have pure card draw. Like, you're always drawing with Diablo, like your opponent is drawing a card per turn, right?
Yeah. As long as he's exerted, and like it's not like they have a bit of pure card draw, but theirs is still usually conditional to your opponent. Like Clarabelle is dependent on cards in hand for you. Like it's really still tied to your opponents. But yeah, I can see what you're.
But it's still like so. I want to say like dominant. Like you're looking at Steel. Like I was looking at various like analysis on YouTube. Like people are trying to just see what's happening with like Doc, with the Beast, with Whole New World. That's also like a card draw. Like you have a lot of great ways to draw cards that are not, you don't have to jump through many hoops. Like even like we can understand why Hiram was that good. Like you had that small hoop of having to play high items. The thing is like it was drawing so many cards so consistently.
And it was hard to answer for any deck that were not playing Ruby, right? Like I think that was the real issue.
If you didn't have the Ruby removal, you were pretty much guaranteed 4 cards out of your Hiram.
So that's kind of the thing, because where does blue go from here? Like, do you have to pair it with...
You don't want to pair it with Amethyst. There's barely any removal. That's not a control deck. Like, you're not keeping the...
I mean, there's some... but it's mostly an Amethyst deck, right? Like there's not that many blue things in it, right? Like right? It's just Amethyst with Ram. So I would not even call it like a Sapphire deck, to be honest. Like it doesn't have the identity of Sapphire all that much.
You're just gonna use blue to ramp and maybe like some good cards like Hades, I think, and I don't know, let it go.
Yeah, Tipo Sail, let it go.
Yeah, that's
like
what it is.
We played one the other night where, if I remember correctly, there were no Hirams in there. I don't remember. You had the list from...
I can pull it up.
Yeah, but the deck still felt very much purple. Like all the card draw came from like slamming genies. Yeah. I don't think there were Hirams because there were genies in the 4-drop spot and
genies friends.
Yeah,
and friends, right? Like and I didn't watch the Q&A that Stephen Miller did after the announcement because it was going to be too hard for me to listen to. And I have apparently said that they wanted Amethyst to be the card draw color and not the other. And I was like, that's absolutely a bad idea, right? Like in a game where you're not allowed to play more than 2 colors, you cannot give card draw to only one of them. Like that's absurd.
Yeah, you're basically just deeming the best color in the game, right?
I'm probably he said that like or maybe it's out of context, but like I'm sure he doesn't mean to say that. Like I don't think,
because I kind of read other stuff. I don't remember if it was written by Steve Warner or whoever else, because they said like the Fortishpere, when they were talking about Fortishpere, they were saying the card was kind of out of character for the identity of Steel, which I understand. You don't want your items to be your source of card advantage. You want creatures, you want characters that you work for, like Beast or like...
And even Beast is really an outlier in Steel. Like, Steel is replacing cards in your hand. It's draw, discard. Even Whole New World, you lands and dock. Like, you discard your hand and you replace it. So it's card replacement with some advantage. So in that way, Fortishpere was really out of character for it.
Well, in a way, I'm okay with like the big legendary card of the color to be giving you something a bit out of character. That's fine, but also Fortishpere was a common. So, and it was enabling a lot of stuff. That's a thing. So,
and I mean, if the whole cycle had like, okay, there's a blue item that draws a card for 1 when it enters. There's a red item that draws a card for 1 that you can sacrifice. There's a green item. Like, if they'd done the whole cycle, I think it would have been a little bit more, I don't want to say consistent, but at least opened up more avenues and just saying like, well, these 2 colors have the 1-drop bubble. So if you want the 8, it is blue steel. Period.
Yeah.
I thought Fortishpere was fairly well designed, to be honest. The fact that you need to pay 1 to use its ability, and the ability is like okay, right? It's not overly strong.
Yeah, no. The fact that it's barely used says a lot about it.
I really think that without Hiram, it would have been fine.
Yeah, well, the other thing, like the other card that was pushing it over the top was Bell.
Yeah, Bell.
So
I mean that card is a problem by itself. I mean, yeah. Magic did that, right? Like,
I mean, it's also that Bell is so card negative now.
Yeah.
Since you don't have Hiram, the commitment to going like turn 1, I'm gonna spend 2 of my cards that I'm not gonna get back turn 3 by playing an Hiram. Like
Bell. Yeah.
No, but like, because usually turn 3 you could, like, you would ramp turn 2 and then, well, let's say turn 4, because you have to play the item back, but like you were regaining that
you
card.
Could.
Yeah,
with Sail you could.
Exactly. So you could like turn 3 regain that card advantage, but now it's really a commitment of saying, okay, I'm gonna waste 2, well, not waste, but I'm gonna play 2 cards to get that Bell onto the board. It's a lot more commitment than just...
Yeah, I mean, I guess she's fine now. You're right.
And also the consideration now is like, because, you know, the ban was, I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, because, you know, they had to prepare for it somewhat, and I think
I do think that I think the order of operation got mixed up, because clearly some outlets were aware, like Polygon had an article speaking with Steve about it about 20 minutes after they announced it. I know Speci came out with a video like almost immediately as well, so I think some people had some kind of advanced knowledge, and they had the Q&A ready. They had like, it's just that they didn't take it all at the same time, and it was like, well, there's an article popping up there, and then 4 hours later we're going to address it.
Because the last thing, like, I'm kind of maybe just taking a little tangent here, like, my main problem with this is like, okay, there are a lot of bigger tournaments in the States, 1K, 2Ks, 10Ks, whatever Ks, with like big household names playing in them and kind of breaking the meta. Like, I'm thinking about Zan that went on in the first week of set 7 of like, I'm 50-1 with this blue steel deck. Like,
oh, it's 50-1 now? No, it's 50-0.
Oh yeah, he was 50-0 afterwards, but you know what I mean is like, for me it was kind of weird because even though those big tournaments took place, it's not the same, I want to say,
as a DLC.
Yeah, it's not the same as the DLC, and we didn't have DLCs. All of this happened kind of in this blind spot of actual official big tournaments.
But I'll play devil's advocate. Without those DLCs, your only official tournaments are going to be your set championships that your casual players or at least league players are going to be in. And do you want their experience to be like, whoever is playing blue steel and blue red takes all the top 8 all the time,
all
and
the
that's
prices.
all there is?
Sure enough.
I'm sure that's what they think, right? Like they're really trying to please a more casual crowd, and I totally respect that. And yeah, so even without DLCs, they've mentioned Worlds as one of the reasons as well. I think every time in a DLC where we get mirror match for 4 rounds in a row, they obviously don't very much enjoy that, and they feel like they don't provide good entertainment to the viewers.
Especially when one of those decks takes 15 minutes turns just playing with themselves.
Sure. I mean, I'm not too worried about that going into Worlds because those are world-class players, right? And they're gonna play at a good pace. But
or
yeah, it's all of that. I think that make the decision go that way. But one thing is that is a bit harder to swallow is that it's very drastic towards one color is really what it comes down to. And like all the other colors have all these cracked draw engines and cracked tempo plays and cards, right? And it just feels off, right? It just feels like robbery, right? And it feels also that they just heard complaints about Hiram's and Blue and Sapphire in general, and they did the same that they did with Bucky. They said, okay, everybody's complaining, everybody doesn't like it, we're just gonna listen to the crowd. And while there is good things to learn from the fact that they're willing to listen to us, I feel like you're also pushing for a culture where everybody will complain all the time now.
Yeah, well, that's actual concern we had in even other card games, like we were calling it Twitter warriors and whatnot, of like pushing for a ban. It was like a community ban, not even like a mechanical or
official
ban. It's like community complained so much that it ended up being like, oh, okay, we're gonna do it because no one wants to be playing against that card. But the card wasn't that problematic, or it was more based on the feeling of, oh, it isn't fun to play against, which
I mean, I'm looking at results here. 273 players last weekend in Europe. Almost full top 16 is blue, red, and blue steel.
No, I'm
SSG,
not going to pretend it was not the best, right? It was the best.
It was the best. Like
no. There's no questions about it. I'm never gonna refute that.
I wasn't refuting you. I was arguing with Drew's point that they're reacting to people complaining on the internet.
I understand that, but your reaction cannot really be, and I'm sorry for my crude language, you cannot just turn around and just shoot a whole color in the head.
I mean, they did say they were looking at, like, they're keeping an eye on Diablo, so we'll see how that comes out. But
I have played against this card multiple times since yesterday.
Yeah. But we'll see how that goes. But
it feels like
the problem is, what other card would you remove that would solve Sapphire? Like Tamatoa? Do you feel like removing Tamatoa would have been a better solution?
Than Hiram?
Yeah.
Other than Hiram, you mean?
Like if you're looking at that problem from a perspective, like if you remove Popsicle and Fortishpere, you're saying we remove the 1-drops. It's the same effect as removing Hiram, basically, because now you don't have Hiram targets.
I think both Popsicle and Hiram were the death of Sapphire.
Yeah.
Because.
And if you leave them there, the deck has so many tools this set. Like the problem is this set with Bell, Scrooge, and Tamatoa, they gave so many tools at the same time.
Yeah.
That it was hard to find one thing that would solve it.
I think I have a few changes, right, that I think would have been like my changes, or maybe like in terms of like balancing a little bit better would have been like, I think Hiram with 5 willpower, coil once per turn.
Yeah, that would have helped.
And Tamatoa 6, only items that cost 3 or less are free.
Yeah.
That's
or even comes into play exerted, right? So that you can't dime in.
I don't think that matters too much.
You still gain, like, you pull ahead so hard by just dropping a 7-drop for free,
I think those 3 changes, obviously that's very obnoxious as a company to do, right? Because it's a physical card game, right?
Yeah,
so
and then
I understand that they didn't go for that. I'm saying what would have been ideal is, I think those changes would have made blue on the same scale of level as the other decks. Now that you remove Hiram, it's way below, right? Like it took the biggest hit that any new sets have done in the past for any decks.
That's kind of been my point for like the whole video. Like, what's your good incentive now to play blue? Like, Bell is minus tempo, like a big minus tempo. Tamatoas kind of feel like there's nothing to bridge a gap in the early game for them to be relevant.
I still think Tamatoa 6 is a reason to be fair. That card is very, very powerful. And because it's both card advantage and tempo, right? And it's a good board presence as well. It quests quite a bit well. So like, it's just very well-rounded, just as Shark was, right? Like, I very much like compares both, right, in terms of like their power level. And so I think he's still a good reason to. I think Sail also is a fantastic card.
Obviously, it's your whole card,
Yeah, exactly, right? I think Sail is another one, and Coil also is another one. Like Coil with Sisu. I think Sisu is not very playable outside of blue because a lot of characters have 3 or 4 power, right? And the fact that you can have Ice Block and Coil along with her is the reason to play blue for
Yeah, so now really the question becomes how do you stay card positive in that environment? And that's the new challenge, right? Because
absolutely, yeah.
I guess
and I think that's where we see Coil being much, much more balanced now, right? Without Hiram feeding it so easily.
Yeah, because you can't as easily like ink 2-3 cards a turn with Quill, like because that's the other thing, right? Hiram was feeding Quill fairly easily in some of the sets because, well, okay, I'm going to play a Popsicle, crack the Popsicle, that's 3 cards in a turn. It's no matter that one of them goes into the ink to ramp, still even, but now it gets harder. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that like you would like something like Tipo, right? You diminish your hand size quite a bit in order to ramp to a thing, right? That was Hiram, that would stick onto the board long enough for you to recover in terms of board presence and hand size in order to play those very impactful cards that are like Maui's, for example, or Medusas, right? And so you could always get back the board presence.
Or to get to that be prepared on time.
Yeah, exactly. But even that, be prepared is not good anymore. Like there's so many tools around it, right? Amethyst draws out of it, Steel can stop it with Pete, Emerald can discard it, right? Like there's just so many 8s already towards it that it was already falling out of the meta sets after sets, right? And
yeah.
My way of answering Blue Steel in the last month was to actually go to 0 be prepared, because the reason for that was that they had such a big liability in the end game with dimes and tamatoas that I needed to answer what they do and quests, right? And if I take any time to just reset the board, I'm never gonna recover, and I'm never gonna get this board present that gets me going, right? And they're gonna win the item and the dime and the Tamatoa war at some points before I do, right? And so I completely removed the be prepared. And even like the hideaways, right? I was just playing Cusco on their items in order to get that body on board that can quest for 2 and just accrue that advantage over and over and over again, keep answering whatever they do and quest in the meantime. And eventually I'll be able to win before they can do their dime Tamatoa with 10, 12, 15 items in play.
And just to address the elephant in the room, because I'm sure you've been pinged a million times about it, it's not like Monsieur Dark Yokai, Judy Hops, like all of those fake.
Copium. Copium.
Is there is there anything that can fulfill some of that role to a degree?
The easy answer is no.
Well,
no.
There's no pure replacement. That's for sure. But
so it's gonna be like if Hiram was a 10, we can find 4s, right?
Yeah. So that's where you put the rest, like between 1 and 4s.
Yeah, exactly. So Tala is a good like 5 or 6, right? Scrooge needs to be really well built around it, so it like puts a huge tax on your deck building decisions. But he's obviously amazing, right? Like he's a very, very good card if you can build around it. But obviously those decks are susceptible to item hate. They're also very slow. It's very hard to just like play nothing on 1, nothing on 2, right? That is very relevant to the board, and then play a workshop on 3. Like those you just lose to so many decks when you do those type of things, right? And so the other replacements that you're talking about, so the ones that I've been like, Monsieur Dark is not a real card. Like you can put that in the bulk. That's just, as I was joking earlier, that's just Steel propaganda, right? Like everybody's playing Storm. I'm not gonna play a 1/2 that doesn't do anything on play. Like this card for casual. I don't know for who it is, but it's not for us.
It's for our $20 decks.
It's for our $20 decks. It works well in that environment.
Sure. Porcana. The yokai, I think, is actually not that bad if you have the Popsicle on 1, right? Like if you have Popsicle on 1 and you play yokai, and you also don't need to interact with the board like Tala, right? But like we were not doing it with Hiram either, so to be fair. And now you're retrieving the pop and potentially playing a workshop and replaying the pop again. Like that's good, right? Like that's a draw too.
Yeah, it's build your own draw engine, but you're still working hard.
You're working hard. You're putting cards that are very synergistic in a deck that cannot afford to
Stumble.
miss on those timings, right?
Yeah.
And that was the reason why Hiram was the centerpiece, is that we were so far behind all the time that we needed something that was not too synergistic. We needed something that was pure value and that was consistent because of how bad the early game is for Blue, right? They're committing so much into their inkwell, right? And into building up. So obviously, like, yokai will work, and when it will work, it will be quite good, right, as a replacement. My issue with it is that it's very inconsistent. Like, in a lot of the time, you'll be left with a card that doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything.
And it needs to stay a turn in a meta of Strength or Raging Fire and Zeus. And
yeah, it's again the same problem that your Mission Arcana. Okay, it's 3 willpower, but it's still not doing anything. On the turn it comes in. Like, that's again why Hiram was a 10. He was replacing himself and giving you card advantage, you know?
Yeah, and you could do anything with the body on the following turn, right? Like, if you needed to contest a Pluto to reduce its power and send your Maui unchecked on it, you could, right? Like, because most of its value was already gained at that point. Or you could sing Go, whatever you want, right? These cards that have on-quest effect, like, are much worse because you don't have that luxury of being able to, like, do whatever you want with it once it's played, right? And once it's able to do whatever it wants. One of the card that maybe, like, I think is the best of them is Kida from the new set.
Mm-hmm.
She's a 3/3 ward, and the fact that she has ward is very relevant into what Hiram was good against, which was the steel decks. And so now she cannot be dealt with immediately, so you'll be able to get the value. My issue with it is still the fact that you need to exert her to get the value.
And the value is just filtering. It puts on top, it doesn't put in your hand.
It's still card advantage because the card you put into your inkwell is a resource that you don't have to commit, right?
Definitely.
And it plays very well with coil. So it's been quite good, to be honest. Like, I think it's like a very fair card to be testing right now.
I know I've been trying her in the Shark and Make Duck Manor deck and everything as a replacement for Hiram because, she's a turn 3/4 drop that's going to live a turn to be able to sing the turn afterwards, your How Far I'll Go, or to just filter.
And she's good into green steel because they cannot take it out. They don't put too much board presence, right? So you might be able to actually activate her twice before they can actually, like, maybe like run a Pete into it or something like that, right? And having cards that you want on top of your deck is very, very relevant into discard, right? Because a lot of the time
you can discard on top of your decks.
Yeah, if you're drawing the card with Tala, but if it's your last card, like, it's mostly gonna get discarded, and then suddenly the value of the Tala isn't there anyway, and maybe it's a liability because they have a Prince John and they get value out of the fact that you made discard, right? And so, or the fact that you can put something into your inkwell so that you can get to these thresholds where you'll be able to play those impactful cards while also setting up the top of your deck to be the card that you want. I think that's quite good into specifically those discard archetypes.
Talking about that, we're going to close on that. How do you see, like, the meta evolving in the upcoming weeks leading to the set championships? A lot of people are expecting discard, obviously. Lots of memes about Diablo being like, I'm here. And
Public enemy number 1.
Yeah. But how do you feel that's going to turn out?
I think the level 1 way to go would be to be going mid-range over mid-range over mid-range, right? It's just going to be a mid-range fest. Like, anybody that were feeling oppressed by the removal of red blue are gonna be hard stopped by the removal of steel. I think it's like a steel dominated meta, and we don't talk about it because steel feels like almost like a support color, right? A lot of the time, right? It's just like you put the color that you like with removal, right?
With removal, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so but the last month and a half were dominated by steel outside of red blue, right? Like Chernod, yellow green was kind of like in an okay spot.
Yeah.
Because of blue steel being so dominant, and it had a good matchup into it. But now that blue steel is gone, there's no real reason to go that route, I don't think, because there's going to be all these green steels and ember steel checking on all those aggro decks, right? It's always been like that. These decks are so good at dealing with aggression and early cards and like the 1-drops and whatever. Like, you're not playing merfolks, you're not playing anything on 1 when everybody's playing Diablo Storm or Sandy Storm onto, right? And I think the more these decks are present and oppressive towards others, they're just gonna build towards like, okay, I'm gonna be more of the mid-range approach. I'm gonna get the beefer, right? Like I'm gonna be a bit slower and a bit slower.
That's like generally how I thrived in most metagames. Like, you know, the kind of decks I like playing with like beefy green steel and whatnot. That's how I was like. I remember Vegas, for example. That was how I was just eating good, playing against this card, and just having a field day. You know, and I think people will have to find out about this, as you said it. Like they're gonna try and go chunkier and chunkier and chunkier, and they will not be, you know, they will not feel pressure, like you said, Medusas and like Sisu.
Yeah. Until maybe we will, right? Like until maybe
hopefully
Ruby can be good again in those more mid-range metas. But these mid-range decks also, they're the ones having the answers to be prepared, which was always like a card that checks those mid-range going over the top of each other, right? That's what I expect.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, we'll see what happens actually. At least we can say we have space to try stuff now, I guess.
I mean, new metas are always exciting, right? Like, so
it's just kind of bittersweet from it to come not from a new set coming out, more from like them taking one of our toys out, you know?
Anyways. Piamak will still put your links where people can find you. Obviously, you're on Metafy, you're on X. So we'll put the links to all of that. I'm sure you'll come up with way more fun toys. In the meantime, it's just an adaptation period. We will get there.
We trust
but it's always
you.
fun to have you here with us. I know that even without Hiram, I'll still be trying to figure out what to do with Blue Red because people might not be expecting it as much. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's always a good time to be playing a deck when people don't expect it. So it's not all doom and gloom. Maybe we'll find something.
Hopefully we will. We need, I think, the game needs control in it, and that's a big vacuum that we're going to need to fill.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you're the one bringing us there. No pressure. I know you already have a lot on your shoulders, but regardless of that, I hope you do get to walk away from it a little bit and get back well, because we want you in top shape. We have a 2K coming up in Quebec where you'll be attending.
Looking forward to play against you in top 8.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a wild card now. Nobody can expect.
No one knows what you're going to play.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. No, I'm doomed now.
But thanks for joining us at the last minute like that. Really insightful to have your view on this, and can't wait to see what's coming up. Hopefully set 8 brings some new Hiram at home that feels a little bit more balanced.
Yeah, one can hope.
Yeah. And, with the arrival, like we haven't touched on it much, but with the arrival of a new director of communication and a director of competitive play, I think we can expect more balancing like this to be on the menu as they try to figure out the healthy metagame. So we will definitely stay tuned on that. Dru, thank you for joining us as well. I know you've been working
till late.
Really late tonight.
That's fine. Wouldn't miss it.
And for you at home, we're going to see you next Monday on the stream. We're going to see you in the Inkling Adventures $20 tournament that we're running. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment with what you think is going to replace Hiram or how you feel the metagame is going to shift. And until then, keep questing.